This is Kate Baconsale. You're listening to Baconsale.
Maybe I am a mess. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm out of my mind.
Yep.
But heaven help me, I will keep this podcast going until the day I die if I think there's a chance that the listener is still out there.
You're really channeling Joyce. You want to be the hysterical character.
You didn't need to bring Christmas lights and hold them.
Can we do this one more time, but be Hopper.
Welcome to Baconsale. I'm Joel.
I'm scared, and I'm Kent.
You're scared and you're Kent?
Yes.
I'm Kent. Nope.
See?
That's how scared I am.
Do over.
Do over.
Hi, Jake.
There you go, Jacob. You gotta say your name, otherwise they won't know.
Thank you.
And we'd like to thank you for listening to Baconsale, and especially thank you for listening to the first part of our Disney Heroes bracket, where everyone agrees with every choice we make, and there's never any problems from anyone.
We were 100% right. And wasn't there... well, look, it's Baconsale.
You know what's always funny to me? Is that I think of us as Team Baconsale here.
Yeah.
Like us three in this bacon cave here right now,
Yeah.
we're on a team. Until we get online, and all of a sudden Jacob is team listener all the way.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
For
He'll
sure.
bash on Baconsale and bash on me and you, and I'm
Yeah.
like, what the heck, man?
Only when you guys make terrible decisions.
No.
Which
You're
is
so
just
fair
most
weather.
episode.
You want more people to like you, and I understand. I get it.
Fair
I
weather?
would never do it.
That doesn't make me a fair weather
You
friend.
jump to wherever the
No,
weather
listen.
is good.
When I argue with you on the show, I continue to argue with you online. It's a very clear system.
That's it. Well, the Baconsale account, which is Baconsale approved, will have to go against you. And I love seeing people actually download the bracket, which you can get at baconsale.com. And please do that before the final show or the wrap-up next week. But Scott Sprague and his family, he tweeted out that for family home evening, they all printed out brackets. Him and I think they have 3
I
kids
saw
all
that. That was
together.
fun.
And they probably fought within themselves and probably hated us a little bit for our results
I
well.
think his exact quote was something like, "A family meeting got derailed tonight."
Yeah.
and I was like, "Yes, that is
So
awesome,
good.
And we love seeing that. If you have pictures of you filling these brackets out, or your coworkers, or your family, share them with us. We love to see that.
Speaking of the bracket, we are actually going to be giving a prize away to you, listener.
What?
So you already have the heads up, okay?
Are we eligible here at Baconsale?
You are not eligible,
Okay.
sir. Stop
we
entering.
don't know the winners
It's
yet.
it's really confusing me every time you enter, Joel. So, listener, all you have to do is predict the correct winner. You have to look into the future and read our
But we
twisted
already did
minds.
round 1, so we kind of gave him a head start.
So
bit
yeah,
of a
you
head
guys,
start.
you guys have a really good head start. So in fact, I think it's more fair that way because we started with 64. Now you only have 32. So pick one of those 32 that
Winnie
you
the
think
Pooh.
Show your
is
work.
going to be the victor. Definitely show your work. Let us see how you think it goes down. But honestly, as long as you have the right winner, you're going to be entered into a drawing to get a $50 gift card to the Disney store.
Did you say 15 or 50?
50?
50.
I think 15 would be
50.
better.
I
feel good about that.
So yeah, what you have to do, you have to first of all fill out your bracket, and then you have to take a picture of it and send it to us on. You can do
I
it
would
on
say
Facebook
that by the 21st.
Yeah, by Sunday the 21st. Sunday,
by the end of the
July
21st.
21st, because the episode should air on July 22nd. But send it to us on Facebook. Can you do Instagram like that?
Yes.
But Twitter,
Why would
Facebook,
you?
or you can also just
But why
email
would
it to us at baconsalepodcast@gmail.com.
Yep.
Do it before
By the 21st.
By the 21st, by July 21st, before the episode airs. And if you get the winner correct, the same one that we pick, because we haven't picked him yet, we still don't know who it is.
And you don't have
Winnie
to
the
get
Pooh.
everything right. You just have to get the victor correct.
Then you'll be entered to win, and we'll pick one of those who get it right to win a $50 gift card.
$15 gift card.
$50 gift
Who knows
card.
how this is going to go? Maybe no one will get it right. Maybe one person will. But enter to win $50 to Disney Store. Get your kids something cool. And yourself.
Enter now.
And guys, guess what?
What?
We have a new patron.
We do!
Yay!
I would like to give a shout out, because we give a shout out whenever someone becomes a new patron.
Yeah, we do.
Is Andrea G. Sanders. Thank you
Nice.
for being a patron of Baconsale.
Thanks, Andrea.
We appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Andrea. And listener out there, become a patron of Baconsale so
Yeah.
we can read your name.
I was going to say,
we love you.
The
Come support us.
patrons got an early sneak preview at the bracket before we launched it.
They did.
They also got to see us eat a KFC Cheetos sandwich. So we reviewed that.
People pay to watch us eat.
It was like mukbang, isn't that?
No.
We'll save it for our mukbang show. Anyway, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're not talking about patrons, even though they're awesome. We're not talking about giveaways, even though those are awesome. What are we talking about today, Jacob?
We're kind of doing a new thing today, a new show type. And I hope it's going to go well. I think this is really interesting.
We don't know.
We never know. Baconsale. Yeah. This is basically the influences on Stranger Things, the TV show. So the Netflix hit that you all know because everyone knows Stranger Things because it's super zeitgeist.
But here's
now.
the funny thing. So I thought everyone, at least, everyone knows about Stranger Things. Maybe have heard of it. But one guy, Greg Anderson, actually, the Haunted House guy
we had
from
on season 2.
Yeah, like way back when.
Yeah.
But he posted on Facebook that he'd never seen an episode of Stranger Things. And I'm like, you love the 80s. You love horror.
Yeah.
This is totally up your alley. And I was shocked.
Is there stubbornness?
No, it's just he said, I just haven't had the time to sit down and watch an entire series. And I was like, I wanted to be like, you'll love it.
And you're like, get your life together, sit down and watch TV.
Yes.
Yeah.
Waste an entire evening watching Batman trilogies.
Exactly. You know what's funny is kids are always like, I'm bored. I'm like, I wish I was bored because I would just binge more Netflix. Like, there is no bored.
There is no board
So
anymore.
Stranger Things is sort of this Frankenstein of all things 80s.
Yes.
And we're going to basically dissect Frankenstein and talk about all the individual parts
So
and how it relates to the show, right?
If you have a friend that hasn't seen Stranger Things, you can also point them to this episode because we're going to be speaking on very general terms and trying to let people know what they can do, a preschool of sorts, to really understand Stranger Things when they watch it. Or even if you have watched it, this can also apply to you go back watch these movies. You'll appreciate the show even more. Just tell them to jump about 10 minutes into the show because they don't need to hear all that first part.
Right. Exactly. So I want to give a little bit longer synopsis for like kind of overall reach of the show, if I could. And I'm going to leave out characters because I want to get into some of the actors and characters and creators of the show in just a bit. So in a small town where everyone knows everyone, a peculiar incident starts a chain of events that leads to the disappearance of a child, which begins to tear the fabric of an otherwise peaceful community. Dark government agencies and seemingly malevolent supernatural forces converge on the town, while a few locals begin to understand that there's more going on than meets the eye.
Did you just pull a Transformers reference there?
Maybe.
They wouldn't be above that.
Yeah.
We talked about this
Season
a little
4.
bit. We did a review of season 3 on Friday.
Yep. Just barely.
And we talked about how this was a nostalgia machine.
Machine meaning like they just churn it out.
Meaning
right?
this is got it's like a keyboard and they're hitting all the buttons of nostalgia. And you're like, oh yeah, that thing. Oh yeah, that thing. It's like Super 8 in that regard. Do you remember the movie Super 8?
Yeah.
This is like a kind of an extended version of Super 8.
This is the nostalgia for Super
Really
8,
is.
which was nostalgia for other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so Stranger Things was created by Matt and Ross Duffer. They're twin brothers, the Duffer brothers, what they call themselves. And they actually had this idea back in like 2010, I think it was, and they pitched it to 15 different cable networks and it rejected by every single one of them.
How do you think the pitch went? Because I honestly imagine it being like, and feel free to jump in, Joel, but it's kind of like, hey, you guys like the Goonies? Yeah, Goonies are pretty good back in the 80s. Like, it was strange we never got a sequel. We're going to make a sequel.
Well, I can actually tell you their pitch.
Go ahead.
I have it right here.
Please go on.
Well, and this was just one of those little things that they put out there. This is from the original pitch for the show they called Montauk at the time. That's what it was called.
Okay.
It says...
Montauk. What's that a reference to?
It's
Eternal
Montauk, New
Sunshine
York.
of the Spotless Mind.
No, well, kind of, yes. But
Yes.
Montauk, New York was where a lot of real-world conspiracy things happened. So this is the pitch they gave. Montauk is an 8-hour sci-fi horror epic set in Long Island in 1980 and inspired by the supernatural classics of that era. We explore the crossroads where the ordinary meet the extraordinary. Emotional, cinematic, and rooted in character, Montauk is a love letter to the golden age of Steven Spielberg and Stephen King, a marriage of human drama and supernatural fear.
Okay.
That sounds,
I'd watch that.
No, I think it sounds redundant.
It
and
sounds a little
irrelevant.
It sounds sleepy,
It
though,
is, yeah.
honestly.
No.
They say science fiction.
They're early on pitches.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they could have been like, but we're going to have a John Carpenter synth score and all this other stuff, which we'll get into.
Well, and they need to focus on it's a young cast.
Yeah.
Well,
you know?
that's just it.
In
So
peril.
the cable
and
networks,
deep horror.
the cable networks said, no, we don't want this because they said the plot centered around children in this kind of danger didn't work. They said either raise the age of the kids or lower the intensity of the series.
That's stupid. That's the whole reason it works.
Exactly.
It is interesting, though. I mean,
they
like,
wanted to focus on Hopper and his exploration into the paranormal. They wanted it to be about him.
there's
the
so
sheriff.
much nostalgia.
like every other show.
And obviously, we grew up with this
Exactly.
exact nostalgia, so it's perfect for people like us. But even millennials like this show, and they were not exposed to this. Like, yes, the kitsch is always there in Stranger Things, and that's the
But
joke.
I think it's the same reason you and I maybe had that nostalgia for the 50s and 60s, even though we didn't grow up in that era. Like we watched like Happy Days or Sock
No,
Hops
but
and
we
things like
actually
that.
watched those shows.
Right, but what I'm
we
saying
saw
is like,
Green Acres, we saw Gilligan's Island, even though it was well before us.
It's true. Nick at Night was awesome.
Yeah.
Save it for a Nick at Night show. We need to have a Nick at Night
Yeah,
show.
we do. We really do now.
We totally do.
I can't wait.
I'm added to the list now.
Okay.
You keep talking.
Done.
Anyway, no, I said the series was originally known as Montauk. But they ended up changing it to Stranger Things because it was similar to Stephen King's novel Needful Things. But apparently they still argue about that title. They're not even sold on it now, but it's it's cemented now.
As I talked about in the review, this is full of nostalgia, which we're going to get into the direct influences because there's like 1.5 million references, but major influences on the plot and the characters.
Just to delineate the difference between a reference and an influence. A reference is like when
they wear Ghostbusters costumes.
They're wearing Ghostbusters costume one season, or they're watching He-Man at one time,
or posters on the wall.
Back to the Future is playing, in the theater,
or the music that plays. That's all reference. Influence is more the presence is felt, or they're even doing homages to it, but it's not a direct.
So in that way, does this feel like Avatar? James Cameron's Avatar, where that movie was influenced by Pocahontas. By Ferngully, by Dances with Wolves.
Because the difference is James Cameron isn't referencing that as an influence. He's just ripping it off and saying, I came up with a story. They're blue skin. It's different. Whereas the Duffer Brothers are coming out saying...
So if you own it, it's
if you own it and say this is an homage to this, and it has to be a love letter too. It can't be the same story, just repackaged.
Well, it's like taking a song that you love, right? And you do a cover on the song, is you have to stay true to the emotional roots while adding your own take on it. So it adds to.
And I think the reason is we want people to love the cover song, but also have listened to the original song.
Exactly.
Yes, for example.
And that's why we're doing this list.
Mad World.
Yes.
You get Mad World by Tears for Fears, and it's kind of this weird, dark, goth, emo synth pop. And then you get Gary Jules' version, and it's this sad ballad.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And Johnny Cash with Hurt versus Trent Reznor's Hurt, Nine Inch Nails' Hurt. Different songs, different feels. And that's why I feel like that's the difference between homage and influence, as opposed to Gus Van Sant's Psycho, where it's a shot-for-shot remake.
Lion King, for example.
Lion King, where they're saying, it's live action now. And it's
same exact
shot-for-shot remake, really no originality in it. That's a whole different story.
Yes, it is.
Do you know what I found really interesting about this, though, Kent? Is their idea for Stranger Things kind of grew from the movie Prisoners.
What?
That's do you remember that movie?
I love that movie. So it's Denis Villeneuve. It's his movie with Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal. And it's all about child kidnapping.
Yeah.
What?
So they said that
Please go on, Joel.
It's such a dark movie.
And if you remember, that was the movie I said, I can't watch this movie. Yeah. Just spoil it for me so I know if the kid's going to be okay.
I was there for that conversation.
My poster blurb says,
heard the whole
hug your
spoiler.
kids.
Hug your kids.
Yeah.
So apparently Prisoners, they saw that and they wanted to explore the moral struggles a father goes through when his daughter's kidnapped in that movie.
Yeah.
But they wanted to expand it and kind of build on that in a different situation. And they thought, what if something supernatural took your kid and you have even less control over what happened to them?
Okay.
You can't just go out and find them. You have no idea where they could possibly be.
And then you become crazy Winona Ryder.
Exactly. So that's kind of the influence of where Joyce's character comes from. The mom in Stranger Things whose son who disappears.
You talked about the creators, but let's talk about some of the cast, which some of them are names now because of the show, but like you have Winona Ryder. David Harbour has always been like a character actor, but now he's slightly more big time.
Villains a lot more.
What's he been in? Because I don't know him.
Well, now he's in Hellboy.
Well, I saw that.
Yeah. You actually saw the movie?
Oh, it was so bad.
I didn't see it.
So bad.
You did see it?
Uh-huh.
Save it for a Hellboy show.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Also, but this show is introduced.
Play along, Jacob.
Yeah. That's not Millie Bobby Brown, who plays 11 in the show. Finn Wolfhard.
Godzilla.
Gaten Matarazzo. And, there's a few other characters that they're starting to be in more movies because they're a young cast as well. But even like the characters' names have now become almost household because every household has Netflix, I would say.
Pretty much.
So you have like Joyce Hopper, 11, Mike, Dustin, Lucas, Will, Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve.
Right.
Like these are
very
all
80s names.
Very 80s names, but like they all fit together really perfectly in this whole casserole of nostalgia.
Right. And they said when they created it, they wanted to scare the audience because this is a scarier show. This is sci-fi, but they didn't want to make it too scary. They wanted to call back to they said that they wanted to go back to the movies that made the PG-13 rating necessary. Because if you recall, back in the day, it was just PG and R.
Yeah, it's
kind of wasn't until about
like
84,
Gremlins.
85. Yeah, exactly. Gremlins, Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom. These movies that actually had some scary stuff in it and may have disturbed some children. And they said, we want to disturb people. We just don't want to destroy people. Like they didn't want to focus on gore and blood and stuff like that. They wanted to have something that was accessible for kids and adults, but that had real stakes.
Okay.
Also, I wanted to point
That's
this out.
what they did.
is in addition to some nostalgia that happens for all you font nerds out there.
Oh, no.
There's 4 of you.
No, apparently they use this one called ITC Benguit. I don't know how to say it. BENGUIAT.
Why are you talking about fonts?
Because the logo
Yeah.
for the show is the same one they used on Stephen King novels in the 80s and the Choose Your Own Adventure series.
It does look like that.
Yeah.
And so they do these little things where they just kind of pull in this nostalgia, these little buttons, and it's like, oh yeah. But then obviously, like you said, they use references too. Like they're using music from The Clash, Joy Division, Toto, New Order, The Bangles, Echo and the Bunnymen, Peter Gabriel. Like
The first couple episodes of season 3, there was so many songs.
Yeah, there's-
Holy
It's like they're trying to
cow.
remind you,
Throwing 'em
hey,
in
it's
there.
the 80s.
Yeah,
You're in the 80s. It's okay.
Over and
Lego
over
my
and
Eggo.
over.
Right.
But yeah, so Kent and I, we were talking about this because we were talking about we have a couple different shows that we want to do down the road. Like there's a horror preparation
Educational shows.
Yeah, a film education show where we're talking about must see movies. And one of the things we got to talking about is, do you think that people, for example, the millennials, but anyone who maybe didn't have a lot of 80s movies
Strict
references,
families and whatnot.
yeah, will they really appreciate all the stuff that's going on in Stranger Things? Because there's a lot happening in there.
They're probably going to like it anyway.
Well,
even
and they
without
will.
the references.
But it's like, for example, there was this episode of Psych, the TV show Psych. You guys remember that show, right?
No.
But there
I've
was
actually never seen it.
Oh, really? Oh,
I'm
really?
joking right now, listener, okay? That was a joke.
So Psych,
Sometimes you can't tell on
You really
podcasts.
get dick jokes.
I know, right? Yeah.
there was an episode of Spike called Dual Spires. And it was this whole homage to Twin Peaks. So, Dual Spires,
Perfect for
Twin Peaks,
you.
get it? And I watched it and I was like, oh, that was funny. I enjoyed that. And I was like, I want to understand more about this episode. I want to get the jokes. So I ended up watching the whole series of Twin Peaks.
Oh, you didn't watch Twin Peaks till after?
That was the tipping factor. I'm
Everyone
like,
should watch Psych before Twin Peaks.
but then I was like, I went back and watched the episode, and it was so much more funny. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
what we're doing today, listener. Is that we're giving you this course, this preschool of Stranger Things,
a suggestion of sorts,
some
right?
things-
A list.
some references you can do, and then when you watch it again, or
Watch
if you
these
haven't seen it before,
movies.
So if I watch Epic Movie, I should watch all the movies it parodies beforehand.
it will
right?
make it better.
Nah.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not
But
sure anything
Kent-
will help that. but-
Kent was I don't say this often, but Kent was a genius because
Oh.
we were trying.
Definitely,
Whoa,
that's a
what?
soundbite. Thank you, Joel. I'm
We were-
blushing right now.
I said was, but
Was?
we were talking about how many things to do, and we're like,
I love you,
okay,
Zombie Kent.
We want to be able to give people, like we were saying, like top 10 or top
Yeah.
5, like references what we should do. And then Kent's like, what if we do 11? And I was like, there it is,
That is-
right?
that is
That's the
great.
magic
Yeah.
missing ingredient. So we have
Numbers.
11 references that we're going to give to you to help you better appreciate or get a more rounded education on the references and influences of Stranger Things.
Right.
So you're saying Kent is really good at kitschy things.
Yes.
Get numbers.
Awesome.
Punny.
Well done.
All things.
All right.
So Joel, get us
Let's talk
started
about
on this
these.
one.
So, for example, the first one we're going to talk about today is The Goonies. If you haven't seen The Goonies, you probably haven't been around on the earth for more than maybe 10 years. Because Goonies is one of those movies I feel like everyone needs to see as kind of a rite of passage. Maybe?
Honestly, I think you're also talking to Jake here because I'm wondering, based on his childhood, if these were readily available.
They were not.
Did you watch Goonies?
I saw fragments of it on TV,
You haven't seen Goonies?
and I've never gone back.
Oh my gosh.
I told you.
So I think I might.
Oh my gosh.
I think I might
we're
have
stopping the
seen-
show right now. We're going to watch Joel.
I'm having heart palpitations.
Drink some water.
The Cheeto sandwich is not sitting well.
It is not actually.
I have like memories of like it's like this is how I remember it from my like young kid brain, right? Is there's like there's some sort of adventure and there's like the weird looking dude who always follows them or something.
gosh.
Like that's
Jake,
kind of how I remember
Who
it.
is One-Eyed Willie?
Oh, that sounds familiar. No idea.
Oh my gosh.
What is the Truffle Shuffle?
Don't know.
Oh my gosh.
This guys, we're looking for a moderator for Baconsale.
I'm sweating. I'm sweating right now. Oh my gosh.
Hey guys, can I show you something? While you guys were talking, I thought, oh crap, I need to watch this. Look at my computer screen right now.
Looking at what the Goonies is.
No, watch.
What? He
I
Googled
looked
Goonies.
at where
He
to watch
Googled
the
what
Goonies.
is Goonies?
No,
and he spelled
I
it
said,
with a U.
I said watch the Goonies.
Jake, what
where
is
to
the
watch.
candy bar referenced on the Goonies?
What do you mean by where?
What candy
what
bar
candy
is
bar is
referenced on the Goonies?
Oh, I can.
Oh my gosh.
Name 2 actors from the Goonies. While
I
they're
remember
looking at
that
the computer.
part though. I remember that part.
No, you don't.
I do.
I've gotta stop. This whole thing will be
no. There
about
was some
quizzing
character
Jake.
that was obsessed with whatever that candy bar was, and they used it to like continue to like help him or
You're
something.
killing Joel. Joseph.
My whole world is crashing down. Oh wow!
I like
Jacob,
that we
all
started.
right, let's just move on.
One more question, Jacob. In
Okay.
what state? In what state does Goonies take place?
Washington.
So close.
Oregon?
It's actually as well.
Is
I
it
mean,
Washington? I thought the rocks were in Oregon.
Well, they are. The Cannon Beach is in Oregon, but
Okay.
I believe the house is actually.
I have
in Astoria.
redeemed
Okay.
myself.
No.
Yeah,
no,
no,
you're
I
That's
not.
totally
all,
did.
it's Oregon.
All
I'm
is
pretty sure.
forgiven.
I'm pretty sure it's all Oregon.
All is forgiven.
Maybe parts of it are
I
from
won.
Washington, but oh wow.
This is so good. See, it's
Oh
funny
my gosh.
because we started with The Given, right? Goonies was the Given influence on Stranger Things. And little did we know what a bombshell this would be.
Wow.
With Jake.
I mean, wow. We need to have a show where we just quiz
look,
Jacob
listen,
on commonly known movie things.
Ken was right. Like there's a lot of things from childhood that I didn't see then, and I haven't circled
yeah,
back.
he
to.
But
was never
here's the
cared
thing,
to-
Jacob,
Yeah.
is I feel like Goonies would appeal to you only because it's a group of kids exploring in the outdoors and getting into situations and potential danger, but they're not
Causing
on their
trouble.
own.
A lot of trouble.
But it's that whole adventure that I think every kid want to discover a treasure map and go find the treasure.
Which is very Stranger Things.
Yes. So jumping back into this. Oh wow.
Like how I brought that back.
Okay, so Goonies.
Good job.
Goonies is a 1985 movie, Jacob, directed by Richard Donner. A group of young misfits who call themselves the Goonies discover an ancient map and set out on a quest to find a legendary pirate's long-lost treasure. I can't even talk anymore.
Sean Astin's in this.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that's where he started.
Okay.
Josh Brolin, huh?
Yes. As Brand. Okay. So
Yeah, the Goonies.
just to give you, I would say it for our Goonies show, but this just turned into our Goonies show.
Yeah, it did.
So the things you have to realize is that like influences we're talking about Stranger Things. So for example, a tight-knit group of young friends put in a dangerous situation that could cost them their lives.
Yeah.
The parents are largely absent in the movie. Set in the 80s, Sean Astin stars in Goonies, and also he comes in season 2 of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
It's not even like, he's not even himself. He's not like a character.
Right.
He just plays a guy in there, but it's just one of those faces you're like, oh, Sean Astin from Goonies.
Also,
He actually does a really solid acting job because he comes in and he's uncomfortable to watch because he's such a
he's so awkward.
kind of a schlub, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But even character types and character names they take right from here. Like, you know, you obviously have Mikey in both versions. There's Mike and Mikey. There's always like the loudmouth of the group. There's always the one that maybe eats too much. There's the smart one. There's the one in the coma. Oh, wait, that's not in the Goonies. But, you know, even just how they interact with each other and the older siblings aspect as well. Always kind of like the tag along part where they're just trying to get into trouble but not be found out.
Exactly.
And solve a mystery.
Well, and I feel like, man, I don't know what
know.
to say. My reality has crashed.
Right.
I don't know what to say anymore.
You broke Joel.
Corey Feldman's in this.
I know he is. Wow.
He's mouth. Anyway, but I've explained Stranger Things to so many people by explaining it's Goonies meets X-Files. Like that's kind of been my explanation of the show because I thought
Well, it's really Goonies meets everything that we're about to mention.
I thought that it was two references that people would understand and be like, I have a concrete idea of what the show will be.
yeah.
I do have a concrete idea of what Goonies is.
Do you?
Yeah. Because I could have said it's kids on an adventure,
I didn't
and
know who One-Eyed Willie was.
I don't know the characters' names, but I have
Shame,
an idea
shame,
of what
I
it's
know
about.
your name.
That's from the movie.
You killed Joel.
I know, he's so sad.
Anyway, but and one other thing, this isn't actually a full-on reference, meaning this isn't what we talked about. I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
And actually, this is probably about later.
Goonies, you're saying, is an influence more than a direct reference.
Yeah, they
though,
don't. They
right?
don't talk about
Yeah.
Goonies at all. It's just you feel that influence of Goonies on there. Super 8 kind of did the same thing. But also, I'd also put Stand By Me.
Yeah, which will come up.
Will come up later. But that's about a group. Have you seen Stand By Me, Jacob?
What's that?
It's Stephen King.
Let's just assume Jake doesn't know about anything on this
But
list.
that one, oh man.
You know, actually, before the show started, I was going to be like, guys, I should probably remind you that I have there's a pretty big blind spot for a lot of 80s stuff.
you know-
and then I thought, no, I'll just let it
no,
slide.
legally blind spot.
You know when you dive into a pool and it's the deep end,
Sure.
but you don't realize how deep it is until you're in it. That's how I feel about when I'm like with Jacob here. I know his level of understanding of pop culture is here, but then when I dive in, sometimes I get scared and my ears pop.
Yeah, hey, Joel, plug your nose right now. Plug it and breathe. Pop
out.
those ears.
But okay, so Stand By Me, once again, it's a group of boys on an adventure in a forest. And we'll talk about it later when we get to the Stephen King section. But I just wanted to bring that up as also that's another influence where it was a movie of the 80s about these young boys on perilous adventure
Yeah.
where there's danger all around.
An iconic story and trope that everyone should be familiar with.
Goonies.
Yeah.
Stand By Me. I
Stand
would
By Me as well.
Stand By Me was one of
honestly.
those staples growing up. But I really feel like people don't listen to or haven't watched it a lot lately.
The Duffers definitely did.
They did.
Yes.
All right. But yes, so there's me, Goonies, influence number
So
one.
if you were going in the deep end, I'm jumping into the ocean now because I'm going to mention Akira.
Battle Angel.
Oh yeah, I love Akira.
Battle Angel.
You don't know what Akira is.
No, that's
Joel,
the-
stop
that's-
that before we get
I know
loose.
it is the 1988 Japanese animated post-apocalyptic cyberpunk film.
It almost seems like
Jacob's
you're-
Googling again.
Oh, that's amazing.
Directly from Wikipedia.
Now, full confession, I'll admit it. I don't have a concept of Akira. It was
Have you
never-
not seen it?
No. I didn't.
How dare you, sir? What do you mean?
What's the
you
main
don't know
character's name,
Akira?
Jacob?
It's Kashiro Atuma. That's the
That
director.
is the director.
That's the.
This show is falling apart.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Like I saw the pictures of it, and I was like,
It's interesting
maybe?
because, like we talked about in our Studio Ghibli show, that we're not very familiar with anime, but this is one of 3 foundational anime movies I've actually seen.
You have seen
to
it.
see if I watched this one in college to see if I actually care for the genre.
And
I like this one, but it is weird.
okay,
But I recommend that you watch it just because of the stories it has influenced, namely Stranger Things.
so explain what it is first.
So the plot, it follows a teenage biker with psychic powers. He attempts to release an imprisoned psychic named Akira. And so they basically, like the Duffers have claimed that character of 11 is based off of these psychic characters. For example, like the intro to Akira, and see if this sounds familiar. So you have shadowy government officials talking about an escaped youngster. You then see the escapee with short hair and wearing a hospital gown. The kid has telekinetic and telepathic powers. The kid was being trained as a tool and potential weapon, can murder people with a flick of their brain, and the escape makes everyone panic, but the kid just wants to experience adolescence on their own.
This is Akira.
This is Akira.
Sounds familiar.
Really familiar. And so it's all about these kids who are being controlled by the government with psychic powers. They're called espers in the movie, and they have numbers. Akira is number 28. And so there's a few different things taken.
And 11 is a character who.
Yeah, so 11.
she's number
we haven't
11.
talked about 11 too much. We talked about the group of friends from the Goonies.
Yeah, who
but
kind
then
of stumble onto something bigger than them.
You then add Akira to the mix. So the Goonies, but if their friend has, it was almost alien-like, but a kid with telekinetic and telepathic powers.
She has superpowers. Keep up.
Us keep up, Jake?
Yeah, that's a quote from season 3.
So this
If you paid enough attention to
Right.
pop culture, you would have known that kid, like me. Joel, am I right? Am I right, Joel?
Don't take a prideful drink of that soda right now, Jacob. He's got his straw and he's just like,
Right. Yeah, you guys can't keep up with me.
But the Duffers, they've been very, and that's what I appreciate, they've been very honest. They have owned to the fact that they are stealing and borrowing from everything else.
Well, and I don't think it's stealing, too, because it's basically like, hey, we like this idea. We want to bring it into our show.
But it is a casserole that it's cooked really well, though. But that is the sole anime mentioned on
watch
this
that
show.
now.
But yeah, watch Akira. It is weird.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, I think, necessary if you want to experience.
And that's the one that came out just
foundation
last year with the
genre.
girl with the big eyes, right?
No, that's Alita.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Joel.
Angel.
The one that you wanted to fail.
It did.
No, it didn't actually.
No, it didn't.
No, I said I did.
Oh, yeah.
I know it didn't.
You didn't see it though, did you?
Watch it eventually.
Yeah, it's actually
I
not bad.
I have nothing against it. I just haven't had time.
All right, what's the next one, Joel?
So the next one's kind of it's a weird one because I'm going to throw out 3 quick references.
Okay.
And these references are ones that there's actually a storyline in Stranger Things that deals with these. For example, Gremlins.
Gremlins is a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, already, tone is an influence as well.
Yes.
As you discussed. It doesn't just have to be a story.
And Gremlins is one of those that it was much too dark for kids, but a little too juvenile for adults. And that was that PG-13 that hadn't been created
But
yet.
it also crosses some lines, hence getting the PG-13 rating.
Yeah, putting a gremlin in a microwave and watching it explode.
Yeah.
A little much. Seeing a, shall we say, cat get disemboweled in Stranger Things. But little, like, I was like, holy cow, that's graphic. But very few times that happen.
What Stranger Things does very well is introduce fear, but then also has comedy in between.
Yes.
That you think would fail, and that's what Gremlins does as well. You're like, this is a terrible situation. This is a nightmare scenario.
Ha-ha.
And then there's slapstick comedy somewhere.
Yes. And then all of a sudden there's gremlins, in a bar goofing off, and it's funny again.
And so I really think Stranger Things borrows from, season 2 of Stranger Things.
Well, and there's
Really
there's
is
also a
influenced by
subplot where a
gremlins.
character encounters a creature that could be potentially dangerous, but then keeps the creature as a pet, not understanding how dangerous it can be. And that's a direct subplot of season 2. In season 3, this is just a passing reference, but season 3 there's a Terminator reference, 1984's Terminator.
Yeah.
There's a character in there that's like basically Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then in its third season, there's also references to The Blob, that 1988 movie. Do you remember The Blob from 1988?
I really think it's good.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
That part in the movie theater when everyone starts getting pulled up and eaten. Ugh,
Yeah.
terrifies me.
Have you seen that?
Phone booth?
No.
No, of course not. What am I saying? Have you seen Gremlins?
Yeah, kind of.
Have you seen Gremlins 2?
Well,
No.
he's not going to see Gremlins too if he hasn't
What
seen
if,
Gremlins.
what if he has, Joel?
No.
What if he has?
I love that one. I own it on VHS.
I own both.
Laserdisc.
You're welcome to borrow them at any time. So Gremlins is the main one here I want to talk about because it was both the tone and a subplot, a direct subplot.
Well, yeah.
But they do that all the time in the series where they'll just take a little piece of a movie from that we know and love from the 80s and plug it into this movie and plug it into the series.
Yeah,
So,
and I think there's the same rules for this plot as well for the for Dart.
the
pet.
D'Artagnan?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe. All right, Kent, what is the fourth influence that we're talking about?
Fourth
today?
influence, this is actually not an 80s one, but it's 1979. It's Alien.
Hey, Kent.
Aliens.
Hey, Kent.
Yeah,
Kent.
Aliens.
Kent. Ask me if I've seen this one.
No. You've disappointed me way too much.
Oh, come on. Just ask.
Have you seen Alien and Aliens?
No. Yes, I have, of course.
There's no of course.
There's no, of course. At this point, there's no.
No,
of course.
this is
We
this
can't
is
assume
classic
anything
territory.
anymore.
Ridley Scott. No, I've totally seen this.
There you just Wikipedia again. So Ridley Scott directed the first, and then we have James Cameron with Aliens. The first one,
These are both great movies.
It's all about the extraterrestrial creature which stalks and hunts the crew of a spaceship. And clearly, if you've seen the Demogorgon and the way it moves in season 1, and that
It looks like a xenomorph.
It's the humanoid with kind of like the weird plant Venus flytrap face. It is definitely xenomorph-like, and in that way, creepy.
We should clarify. We're getting a little too deep in the weeds here.
Yeah.
The creature from Stranger Things looks like the creature from the movie Aliens.
Yes, I'm getting a little technical.
Demogorgon, xenomorph.
I think I just threw a pimple just
Yeah,
on
I
those
think you
references
did.
right
Went
there.
like full dust in there.
Yeah, and then there's also egg implantation into bodies.
Yes.
A lot of parasitic
There's
stuff.
tendrils going down people's throats.
Yeah. Ugh.
But even they did mention that the Upside Down, which is this other realm in Stranger Things, looks similar to the alien world.
Yes.
Which I thought was
Which is funny because it doesn't become another world. I mean, it's very space-like.
Yes.
But there's a lot of like ash falling and stuff like that.
Is that
It
a
gets
reference
very
to?
dark.
I mean, is that from anything? Upside Down? Because that felt like I was like, I feel like this is something maybe I've heard before, but I don't know where.
The name Upside Down is new, but it's, as we're going to mention, been shown a lot in other media.
Like, for example, I know, was that Event Horizon where they talk about the same thing where it's like the wormhole going through and they do the exact same paper demonstration where they take a piece of paper, put a pencil through it, and say if you put enough force through this dimension, then you can pop out on this other dimension.
And it's we talk a lot on this show, here and there, about multiverses, and this could be almost like a nightmare multiverse, that it's a parallel
Nightmare
universe.
Multiverse was my band's name in college.
Yes.
We
What kind
did
of music?
Exclusively lullabies.
Could you sing one for us now?
No, it was all instrumental.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Get
so-
this guy a guitar or whatever he played.
I played the xylophone. Xenomorph xylophone. So we've been talking exclusively about movies thus far with Goonies, Akira, Gremlins, and Alien. But we're going to go a little different here on this influence. It's Dungeons and Dragons.
Now, what is the Dungeons and Dragons?
I'm glad you asked.
Only we
Kent.
had an episode to explain this.
Yeah.
We
indeed.
actually just did, Jacob. We had an episode of Baconsale where we went out and played Dungeons and Dragons with our good friend Kyler. And it was, what episode was that? I don't even remember anymore. Episode
2 or 3 ago?
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to remember the exact numbers people reference it.
208.
209.
Yep.
209 Dungeon Master of the House. I just looked it
close.
up. If you go there and listen to it, though. So this is both a reference and an influence because literally at the beginning of this movie, of this series of Stranger Things, they're playing Dungeons and Dragons. And it's a group of boys in their mom's basement playing this game and pretending like they are these fantastical warriors in this fantastical world. This is also done in other movies in the 80s, which we'll get into, like E.T. They play Dungeons and Dragons, so this is kind of an homage to that.
Well, it's kind of, we mentioned like the game Dungeons and Dragons is a really uniting thing for young geeks, essentially. And that's what our characters are when this show begins.
Well, and this is the source of the name of the monster.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, because the Demogorgon is from Dungeons and Dragons, and they apply it to the creature in Stranger Things.
Because it's just the big, scary creature.
In fact, if I may...
Please do, Kent.
The Demogorgon, according to Dragon Magazine...
Wow.
Is considered the most powerful villain in the first edition of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It rules as a demon prince of the abyss, an ever-changing plane of chaotic evil.
Ooh, The Abyss, another James Cameron movie.
You sure? Jake, have you seen
Kid,
that?
how dare you?
Have you seen The Abyss?
You
Jacob?
haven't seen The Abyss.
Have you seen The Abyss?
I've seen The Abyss.
You've seen The Abyss, but you haven't seen Goonies?
Yeah, I have better taste.
No, you do not.
I don't. And Mind Flayer is another term they throw out, which is also a term from Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
They use Dungeons and Dragons, kind of these boys love Dungeons and Dragons, but also, if you think about it, stepping out from into the viewer of this world, the things they talk about at the beginning of the movie kind of echo what's going to happen in that season. So as they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, it kind of foreshadows what's going to happen. And then throughout the show, these kids really do become kind of fantastical warriors in a fantastical world.
They're all character types who may roll good or bad, that we may never see the rolls, but one may go into a coma and get kidnapped or whatever.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to try this, and they roll their, imaginary dice, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So Dungeons and Dragons, we're not saying, you need to watch a movie about it, because there's really no good movie about it from what I can tell. There's a Tom Hanks one.
What?
There's a Tom Hanks movie about Dungeons and Dragons and he's the kid who gets a little too deep into it and thinks that fantasy is reality and tries to kill other people and himself.
What?
Oh, we talked about this, didn't we?
That's one of Tom Hanks' best.
Mazes and Monsters?
Yeah.
No.
I'm pretty sure that I put this on...
He loses his mind on an island.
I'm pretty sure I put this on... Yeah, Mazes and Monsters. That's
Is
what
this
it's
real?
called.
It
Tom
feels
Hanks.
like you just made all this up.
I posted it on Twitter, on our Baconsale account.
Joel, you've been banned from Twitter for
On our
months.
Baconsale account.
He should be banned.
It's all
you might be
real.
banned
It's all
again.
real.
Go on about Maces and Monsters, because now I need to hear about this.
It's really bad. You need to look up a clip from it.
How old
It's
is Tom
hilarious.
Hanks?
Oh, it's one of his first movies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You just need to watch it.
Okay, I will.
Okay, but Dungeons and Dragons,
won't.
even just knowing about it, like even going up reading about it, or how about this? If you wanna better appreciate Stranger Things, go and listen to episode 209, Dungeon Master of the House on Baconsale, and then you'll get educated as to what Dungeons and Dragons is.
Nice. Do you think D&D geeks, sorry guys, were so excited when Stranger Things brought that game back to light? I mean, granted, it's more popular than ever, apparently, with Critical Role. But do you think seeing it on media, like on a new Netflix show that everyone is watching all at once, they're like, yes, vindication.
No, I think they're like you, where they're like, oh, now everyone's gonna like it. I liked it before it was
so
cool.
true.
I know. When you can buy it at Target, I mean, how exclusive does it feel?
Can you
know?
buy it at Target?
Yeah.
Have you bought it at Target?
No, that's what Kyler was saying, that it's
Okay.
available at Target. Yeah.
All right.
Not a sponsor.
Our next influence is Target. Super Target. Introduced in 1995. No, just kidding.
Shop more.
So our next influence is one that not many people, probably slightly more than Akira. Of course, I went with the hipster choices, right?
Yes, you did.
But it's also not a 1980s influence at all. This game series actually started in the mid to late 90s. It's Silent Hill. And there are movies called Silent Hill and Silent Hill Retribution.
But they're not
or something
good.
Like that. They're not good at all.
The video game is
But
what you're talking about.
The first movie does show the Upside Down in a very cool way that
Really?
is similar to the Upside Down. Movie's terrible.
Explain Silent Hill, the concept of Silent Hill.
Silent Hill.
So there's a hill and it's quiet. What else?
Silent Hill is a town. It's much like Hawkins.
This is a cannibal movie, right?
What? No.
It's not?
It's like Resident Evil, but
Yeah.
with an Upside Down.
Okay.
That's
So
really
go explain the video game.
So, first video game, you are a father looking for his daughter who has disappeared. And you're going through a town, you go through a school, whatever. It's a little bit foggy, but then all of a sudden, sometimes you'll hear a siren, and the whole world changes to an ashy, dark place where there are monsters around.
So is the character switching dimensions, or
the character is
Or is the world shifting
The
around
world is
them?
shifting into another dimension, and it will
Okay.
switch back and forth. And the threat level always obviously grows when it goes to the other world.
So it's like when it gets to be nighttime in Castlevania versus daytime.
Yeah, like Simon's Quest.
Yeah,
Is that what you're
exactly.
referencing?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Was I Feel a Curse?
Oh, we're going nerdy.
Yeah, I know. This show.
What a
I have
horrible
no
night.
idea what you're talking
What
about.
a horrible night for a curse.
What a horrible night for a curse. But yeah, so the Duffers, once again, they said Silent Hill is one of the video games that inspired Stranger Things. Essentially, like, it's a dark reflection of our world, and the game goes really almost like psychological.
But this is 90s, right?
Yeah, this is 90s. But once again, the Duffers have consumed media ever
And they've
since.
acknowledged that there
the
was
80s.
this was one of their inspirations as the look of things, not necessarily a feel.
So Ross Duffer, because people said, "Hey, Silent Hill, one of the influences," and Ross Duffer, one of the creators, said, Silent Hill is one that most people have picked up on because that's the least subtle one. With the look of the Upside Down, with all the fog and the forest dripping, we were really looking at the game for visualizing this other world, so that's a big one. Also, the monsters were, and specifically the Demogorgon, looks really similar to monsters from Silent Hill. They were really influenced by, his name is Masahiro Ito, who designed the monsters, and they took his designs for the Demogorgon itself.
Okay.
Yeah, and once again, like, there's Alien as well. Like I said, it's a casserole that just works
But
really well.
if people were wanted to play this to, like I said, appreciate the influences of the show, which one would they play? What platform?
Go play Silent Hill 2 if you can find it. It is originally a PlayStation 2 game, but you can find it, I think, on the PlayStation Network. And it is a terrifying game, one of the most horrifying games I've ever played, but so rewarding as well.
Silent Hill 2.
It's like Resident Evil sort of action, but with more nightmarish dreamscape there.
Interesting. You've actually piqued my interest now.
Yeah, and once again, like I said, in this other world, it's a rusty version of our own, filled with haze and ash, and you can only use a radio for communication, like a fuzzy little radio. So a ton of stuff pulled
Why
right
did it
into
have
the
hair
Stranger
on it?
Things world. It was a Peach Fuzz, actually.
Oh, okay,
It's a teenage radio.
Oh, teenage radio. Speaking of fog and teenagers, I'm going to be talking about another influence, John Carpenter.
I was waiting for
your
a
little
kid's,
word.
kid's
Yeah.
dating life joke right there.
No, so John Carpenter is a horror icon. He's done things like Halloween and The Thing and The Fog. In fact, the soundtrack from The Fog was used in the trailer the Duffer Brothers created to pitch the show.
Yes.
Which is, I could do it, but I'm not going to do it right now. It's just,
You're not going to?
well, it's hard. It's piano. It's like dun 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 dun.
You're right. You shouldn't have done it.
It's really scary.
It's on my Halloween playlist.
No, it's cool because John Carpenter is this like low budget guy who obviously went into prominence in the 80s, but for a lot of his soundtracks, he wrote them.
Oh yeah, he like if you know Halloween, the
Came off the cuff.
It was him just goofing around with
Yeah.
a keyboard, essentially.
One of the most horrifying themes out there.
So this one was one where it's a reference as well as an influence. And because John Carpenter's kind of the overall umbrella here. But for example, one of the characters compares another character to Michael Myers, which is the killer from Halloween. There's actually, in season 2, there's a character who dresses up for Halloween as Michael Myers. And so it exists in their world. But also just the feel of John Carpenter's movies, also the music, which is funny because like people have often compared the opening Stranger Things theme song,
Yeah.
to Halloween. But Carpenter has told Rotten Tomatoes of his regarding his music inspiring contemporary horror soundtracks. He said, "I'm not sure which ones people are talking about. As far as I can see, no one scores movies like I do. They just don't. They don't even try to do it the way I do, which is fine. If you point out something to me, I'll take a listen to it."
So have you ever seen The Guest?
No.
It has Dan Stevens from Downton Abbey.
And Beauty and the Beast, the live action one. Why would you leave
we
that
didn't
out?
need- I don't know why I did. But the composers of that soundtrack were influenced by John Carpenter, and they were picked up by the Duffer Brothers to do the score for this show.
Oh, okay.
So, like I said, they direct influence there, but
Yes.
also with movies. Slightly spoiler alert, but The Thing is a big influence on season 3.
Well, it's also referenced in the movie. There's a Thing poster, and 2 characters are watching the Thing.
Yeah.
But then there is a definite reference to the creature from the movie The Thing.
Right.
And it's funny when you see it because it feels familiar, and that's why these references work. I feel because they feel familiar, but they're not overtly ripping something off.
Yes.
Or at least not maliciously.
And as far as like season 1, the practical effects used for the Demogorgon, which they went away with in later seasons because the blob monster became more complicated, I should say.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely influenced by The Thing in John Carpenter movies.
And I also want to give a brief shout out to Wes Craven also because I feel like Nightmare on Elm Street, there was a part in the first season when the bad character is trying to come out of the wallpaper and it's like stretching.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is a direct reference to Nightmare on Elm Street. And even the character Nancy, I'm assuming, is named after Nancy from Nightmare on Elm
totally.
Street. So John Carpenter's an influence, but with a little hint of Wes Craven thrown in there.
It is so crazy, like, because we talk about this, and maybe as you're listening, like, how do the Duffers get away with this? right? Because this is names and plots.
It
just
is
taken from everything that people love, and it's just.
But I think it's because they're so open about it. They're like, we love the 80s. This is a love letter to the 80s.
Yeah, it's because of an homage. And you know what? I think Netflix helps because the expectation, it's not like it's a big network show. Because then it's like, oh man, it's so tacky how they're stealing. But on Netflix, it's like, well, it's Netflix.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Well, I feel like this is that Stranger Things is I love the 80s in a fictionalized story. Like, you remember those old shows where it's like, I love the 80s, and it's like, hey, you remember these Rubik's Cubes? Oh, these are crazy. I can't do them.
Hey, new Coke?
Yeah, this is, I remember that.
Yeah, right.
And I feel like this movie does that, but in story form. So it's I love the 80s highlight reel. So,
and do you think if it was like lower quality, like let's say some acting was really terrible or the writing was bad, they would get away with it?
No, I don't think as much. Or if it were more overt in your face, like product placement. Product placement, when done right in movies, it enhances the movie because you're not like
the Burger King product placement in season 3 was bugging me.
There's quite a bit. They flashed it right up in the front of the camera there.
Like, come on,
it's a little overt there, but what I mean is like I'm comparing it to product placement.
Yes.
Like, bad product placement in movies pulls you out of the movie, whereas good product placement it just blends in.
Yeah,
I feel like they're blending in these references rather than calling them out.
Well, and the other thing they're doing too is that they're making a professional quality level piece of entertainment, right? The acting's on, the audio's on, all the technical stuff is right on, the writing's good, the acting's good, everything's there.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, they're taking this seriously. That means they love it like I do.
Yeah.
And therefore they have the rights to continue to play with it.
Yeah.
You know,
I would agree with that.
Were the 80s the best decade ever?
No.
No, think about it though. Like,
no.
So much nostalgia.
No.
Ronald Reagan.
Well, Jacob didn't really see electricity till the 90s. So
Was it in the 90s? It was always like
He missed
this
the
when I
neon.
started stuff, and it was like, man, the 80s were weird, which is why I never went back and
Like,
saw Gremlins.
Let's think about like the mid 90s. Like, what kind of nostalgia is going to be used for something 5 years, 10 years down the road for a show, or
Jurassic
the
Park.
2000s?
Lion
Jurassic
King.
Park, I guess.
Lion King is going to be used for nostalgia.
Oh, remakes makes my heart hurt.
Yeah.
All right, Kent, what's our next influence?
Our next influence is an author who has created many things, books, and then translated into movies. And so I'm going to talk kind of like you do with John Carpenter, the work of this person.
Right.
Stephen King. Stephen King, like
I've heard of him.
You know, for all you font nerds like Joel out there, the font was used from Stephen King novels as well.
Right.
But then let's specifically go into, like you mentioned, Stand By Me. Like this. So this movie came out in 1986, based off one of his short stories.
The Body.
Yeah, The Body.
One of the episodes of Stranger Things is called The Body.
Exactly. And so 4 small town boys go on a hike across the countryside to find the corpse of a missing child.
Yeah, like they heard about this kid from the school who got killed, and they went to go see if they could find the body to get a reward.
Yeah.
It's weird because it's lighthearted, but man, that gets real at times.
Really real.
Yeah.
So actually, in the auditions, the child actors have said in interviews they had to read lines, just for specifically their auditions, from Stand By Me. So Matt Duffer said, "We always wanted to keep the stakes high. When you're looking back at Stand By Me, the stakes feel very real. The kids never feel completely safe, even though there's an element of fun, and you love those boys." So exactly like you said. And then also, like, they're at a carefree age in both stories, confronted with adult issues such as loss and tragedy. And so, yeah, Stand By Me, much like The Goonies, but a little bit less adventurous.
Right.
More dark. And then there's probably a lesser-known story. And let me know if you guys Jake, I know you haven't seen this movie, but it's Firestarter.
I'm the fire starter, twisted fire starter.
Hey. Have you heard that song, Jake?
You guys are nerds.
So it's a 1980 science fiction novel by King, and then the 1984 film adaptation.
I think he likes to go by Stevie.
Oh, Stevie King.
Yeah, just Stevie.
Stevie.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
You're like, I don't know if I can
So-
do it.
So weird.
Stevie.
So much like Akira,
Stevie.
Battle Angel.
where's the show gone? It's a story of a young girl born with pyrokinesis who runs from a secret government agency who seeks to control her. Her name is Charlie McGee. She shares various similarities with 11.
Tier 3 name.
Charlie McGee?
Yeah.
But Stevie's tier 1?
I haven't addressed Stevie.
So both Charlie and 11 have mothers who, while in college, participated in secret government experiments involving hallucinogenic drugs. Slight spoiler alert, but it's also a plotline that doesn't matter in the
Which
show.
one? You're talking about Firestarter right now?
Both.
Okay.
And so both kids are born with supernatural powers as a result of the experiments. And also, it's Drew Barrymore who plays Charlie.
She was
in
a
the
fire
movie.
starter.
Charlie
Twisted
McGee.
Firestarter. Yeah, Charlie McGee.
Ew.
Her dad, his nose bleeds because he also
Picks it.
As he deals with this. Wow. Okay. And
I like that's the go-to, by the way, for most movies.
Yeah.
If they're using some sort of telekinesis, their nose will start to bleed. It's
Yes.
like that's become such a trope to the point where I'm like, but would it really?
it wasn't in Phenomenon as well, or did he just get a brain
I
tumor?
don't- he had a brain tumor, but I don't think it bled.
Yeah,
Maybe
brain
it did.
tumor.
I don't remember.
And then also, It, much like Goonies, much like Stand By Me, I mean, it is the Losers Club.
It's a group of kids. Once again, group of kids put in situations that would be dangerous for even adults.
And they are stalked by a creature originating from beyond our regular
That's true.
universe.
Do you think they're going
lives-
to bring a clown into Stranger Things season?
I'm surprised
4?
they haven't yet, actually. I'm not saying a clown monster, but at least some references.
They got to stick with Demogorgon, right?
Well,
But-
with the big movies going on right now with it, maybe they wanted to stay away from that.
Yes, exactly.
sense.
Actually, the Duffers petitioned to direct It, Chapter 1.
Oh,
They were turned down because apparently these guys just had bad luck. They've written other film treatments, but maybe not a lot of love until Netflix is like, we'll throw some money at you. But they got turned down to do that, and so they decided
But
to
it would have been after the success of
No.
Stranger Things.
No, they were going to do it instead of Stranger Things.
Whoa.
And so they gave that up and then decided to do Stranger Things. And so all the better for
You mean
them.
they got turned down
Yeah, they got turned down.
and then did Stranger Things?
Yes.
well, it's also funny because Finn Wolfhard, which is an amazing name.
Is that a
first of
tier
all.
I'm
one
sorry.
name?
Hold on.
Finn Wolfhard?
That's a tier 1 name.
He's Mike in Stranger Things. He's
Yeah.
also I don't remember which character that he plays in.
Wolfhard?
Wolfhard. He plays
Richie.
He's Richie.
Yeah.
He's Richie.
I think so.
I'm looking
Look it
up.
up. But also in It, so the kids face bullies and throw rocks at them in both stories. They also face monsters and use slingshots and paraphernalia against them as well. So there's direct references in both stories, and there's
Was
a
everyone just
direct
using
influence.
slingshots in the 80s? Were all kids using
I wanted
slingshots?
to
Is
say
that
He
a
is
thing?
Richie. You're right.
Yeah, BB.
I had a slingshot in the 80s.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it must be a thing.
And then obviously other two Stephen King, like really the whole Stephen King
Out of this
universe.
group of 3, we
Yeah.
pulled very high with kids owning
All
slingshots in the 80s.
They were so cool.
Did you have a slingshot in the 80s?
This is the 90s.
We had a slingshot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carrie, definite reference for 11.
Yeah.
Right, so the telekinetic powers and all that kind of stuff. And there's also references like when Carrie's hand comes out of the gray or the ground at the end, and then also Nancy's hand does that through a tree
Yes.
from the upside down. And then lastly, one of my favorite Stephen King movies is The Mist. And so the other world and the government experiments that take place in that story,
Sorry, I hate that movie so much.
love it so much. But the
Why?
government,
I hate the ending.
the ending is
Cop out.
mostly bitter. Hardly a cop
Gut
out.
punch cop out.
So memorable.
Move it along.
Amazing.
Save it for our...
Stephen King show.
That's
Yeah, there you
and
go.
we will have one. The government being responsible for exposing the upside down to our world, and the upside down and their world being very similar with monsters as well. So Stephen King really, so much of it influences this show, and the Duffers have been very proud to admit that as well, as a love letter.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And speaking of big authors and big moments, my final solo influence tonight is Steven Spielberg.
Oh, really? How so?
Because if you go back and listen to Baconsale episode 65, Steven Spielberg and the Raiders of the Lost Art, our episode from way back when.
That's way back when.
It is way back when, but we talk about all these different movies that Steven Spielberg has done, and he is a huge influence. Like just a couple examples: Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's a science fiction film back in 1977, but it's about a guy who gets kind of a vision and ends up obsessing over it to the point where everyone thinks he's crazy, even though he's trying to.
Ask me if I've seen that one, Joel.
Have you seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
Yeah, it's in the 70s. I saw it. I just skipped the 80s.
Okay. And then I've given up. But that's kind of the character of Joyce, the mom in Stranger Things. She figures something out and no one will believe her because she sounds absolutely bonkers.
Right.
Ah, she is kind of like that guy, isn't she?
Yeah, exactly. Also, E.T. E.T. is one of the biggest references I've found because, once again,
70s.
Group of kids, parents largely absent, an unusual friend comes in and tries to experience the world for the first time.
Well, Mike's
Yeah.
trying to keep it a secret.
Hiding him in the basement, just
Yeah.
like Elliot hides
Yeah.
E.T. in the basement. At one point, they dress up E.T. in like a wig. Then they put 11 in a wig.
She makes toys fly just like E.T.
Yes. And then also there's the bikes. There's a bike chase scene in season 1 that is almost like shot for shot, almost. But it's like, once again, this loving homage to the bike chase in E.T. to the point where I fully expected Eleven to be wearing a red hoodie and have it and riding on a basket in front of Mike's bike.
Oh, good call.
I expected that. She didn't, and good on them for not doing it. But I thought it was an amazing bike chase scene because it reminded me of a movie I loved.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's one of the reasons, once again, I feel like I keep forgiving him for using these references because I enjoy them so much.
But also a character type with Hopper as well. Like, he's a police chief displaced in a small town hoping to make a difference. Like, pulled directly from Jaws.
Exactly.
Yeah, you have Chief Brody there. And also, Spielberg and I guess many of the big movies of the 80s used an artist on the posters, Drew Struzan, who drew most of our favorite... Struzan, yeah. No. he drew these posters, like all the Indiana Jones movies and Star Wars movies. And so they got an artist, and he's still around, but they got an artist who says, I'm just going to copy Drew Struzan.
Right.
And so he did the Stranger Things posters.
Yeah. Well, even like movies like Jaws. You think about Jaws and small town sheriff, small town, a threat threatening the small town, sure. But also just the creature. Like the creature in Stranger Things isn't exactly like a thinking in the season one. I should clarify, isn't exactly like a thinking manipulative monster. It's just a creature that got loose in the wrong part, just like Jaws, where it's like it's just eating. It's just mindless eating, destroying machine. And Poltergeist is another influence,
right? Where
not directed by Steven Spielberg, but produced by Steven Spielberg.
Oh, how is this one?
Because
I've seen this one too.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I like when Jacob pipes in when he's like, "I get this run." Joining in. So welcome, Jacob. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
So
I'll step back up to the table.
If you recall, Carol Ann is pulled into this other world.
Yep.
And the only way they can communicate...
I got it mixed up. I haven't seen this one.
Oh, man.
The only way they can communicate with her is through a TV with static. And everyone thinks the mom's kind of crazy for doing it.
Yes.
And it's the same type of thing where in Stranger Things, one of the characters tries to communicate with the other world using Christmas lights.
Yeah.
And so it's just these little references and influences that you just feel. It's like a warm blanket of nostalgia.
All right, so we've gone pretty dark, and we're going to go back there real quick. But my last mention I want to just real quick, and this is both an influence and a reference, is John Hughes.
Yes.
You really can't bring anything from the 80s without having him mentioned at some point.
Well, I feel like if... We've been talking about E.T. and Goonies and stuff like that for the younger kids.
Yes.
But for the older kids in Stranger Things, like Steve, Nancy, Barb, you love Barb, and, I forgot his name.
Why does he love
Jonathan.
Barb?
Jonathan, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that you're exactly right. John Hughes is a big influence on those characters' stories.
Yeah, well, like Nancy she's an unpopular girl who gains the attention of a popular boy at school. So it mirrors like Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, Some Kind of Wonderful, which may all be the same movie, but I'm not sure.
They kind of are.
And also, let's see, like season 3 of Stranger Things contains a nod to The Breakfast Club.
Yes.
And like there's all like, I was always watching you, never noticed me, and it adds a little twist there as well. But the Steve, Nancy, Jonathan love triangle in season 1 is very John Hughes-esque. And then obviously, and this is a direct reference, but the snowball at the end of season 2 is, and I guess this is really every 80s movie.
You have the big dance at the
end. But it's the big dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where like it adds closure and it's nice and some big choices are made and it's sweet. And then also like the show, like it subverts like social status tropes, just like John Hughes movies. Like Nancy chooses love over popularity. Right?
Spoiler alert.
I think that's okay.
Well, it's general.
Okay.
We don't know which one's which.
Yeah.
Also, you get things like, even Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Just the kids running off doing their own thing. Once again, parents largely absent. And Weird Science could also be a definite influence on this movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I totally see the John Hughes influence in there.
Where does Weird Science come into this?
Just them doing these weird experiments, like creating... Well, I don't want to get spoilers, but they do kind of weird science experiments.
That's true, yeah.
And
getting in way over their head.
There's consequences of their actions.
Yeah, that's more what season...
2. Well, no, that's the end of season 1.
If they don't wear bras on their heads in season 4, I'll be disappointed. Yeah.
It's ceremonial. And then finally, our last influence, we're both going to talk about this together.
Once again, super hipster here.
Yeah, this one gets a little nerdy. So it's, you want to say it?
H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Is it that nerdy? Because, I've seen that selling at Costco.
H.P. Lovecraft is a guy. He's a man.
I know that.
They're selling H.P. Lovecraft
at Costco.
So I've seen his stuff selling at Costco.
What is his stuff, Jake?
He wrote the, I don't remember the title, the famous devil one. I can't remember what it's called.
What?
The famous devil one.
Oh, I'm looking it up.
So there are...
At the Mountains of Madness?
No, he has like over 60 short stories and novellas. He was a huge influence on science fiction as a whole, and with the creation of what they call cosmic horror.
Right. He's essentially the J.R.R. Tolkien. I love how they always go by initials.
Yeah.
Of the cosmic
What is
horror
H.P.
world.
Lovecraft's full name? Looking it up.
Harry Potter Lovecraft.
Yes. No, it's not. It's Howard Phillip.
Ah,
I
dang it.
prefer
That's
Harry
way less
Potter.
fun.
Yeah.
But cosmic horror, let's kind of go into that a little bit because the influence is bigger, right? And it also gets into the direct creature of the mind flayer, but also the upside down.
Yes.
So cosmic horror, that usually promotes the notion that human civilization, so world as we know it, like it's just normal life, but it's insignificant in the wider scheme of a mysterious, uncaring universe.
Well, that's the scary part about it is like, hey, your world doesn't mean anything to this other world. Like they're going to come in and destroy your world and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like, so the theme is like an entire alien civilization lurks on the underside of our known world. And we have to see ourselves, human beings, we have to see ourselves as young newcomers in this ancient Cosmo world.
Yes.
Kind of crazy. And then Matt Duffer, he said, when people are like, why don't you show more of the upside down? Why don't you give it more explanation? And he says, it's scarier when you don't fully understand it.
Yeah. Well, exactly right.
Yeah.
I want to point that out is that the good thing that Stranger Things does is they give you little glimpses into what's going on, but there's never like a full explanation of, oh, this is why the upside down
Like
exists.
these are the rules.
Yeah, here's how it all works. Because once you see the mechanics of a magic trick, it's not as impressive.
Yeah.
And once you've seen the monster and understand it fully, it's not as scary.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with you there.
And I would say like this Stranger Things in Hawkins, the town where they live, it's Lovecraft in suburbia. Like they have a fear of the other in this. There's an innocent foundation that it begins with at every beginning of every season, and then that's always threatened.
And the Duffer Brothers have come out and said explicitly that H.P. Lovecraft was a big influence on this Stranger Things story as well.
And if you see the gigantic monsters, specifically in season 2, you'll see that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's no Cthulhu.
No.
Jake, Cthulhu is a Lovecraft creation. They don't sell that at Costco.
They don't?
They don't.
Well, they do samples of Cthulhu, little bits of it.
That would be interesting.
No.
It's really chewy.
Ew.
So there you go. That I was going to say that's our influences. We recommend either watching those movies that we talked about, or reading the books, or playing the games. Really, there's a wide world out there of things that you can do to kind of enhance the watching of the Stranger Things series.
To have as your foundation.
Yeah. And it's funny too because I just want to talk about the show in general. It's amazing to me just how quickly this became a cultural phenomenon, and how many, like 11 costumes that first year,
Yeah,
how many
exactly.
people dressed up as that, and how it's like kind of Eggo waffle sales apparently spiked after this series came out because one of the characters really enjoys Eggo waffles. And how you care about the characters, like.
I like what you're saying, care about the characters, because, this is kind of a show concept that should be 2 seasons at most. Because how silly is it that Hawkins keeps getting haunted and all this crazy stuff happening and everyone's still staying around, but you don't want the characters to go away. You want this to go more seasons so you can see the new adventures.
Yes.
Even though it should finish. It probably should have finished already.
Yeah.
Well, I think
the suspension of reality has to be really, really wide.
Yes,
correct.
Exactly.
You have to just take it. You're like, no, it's worth it to
Well,
me.
and correct me if I'm wrong, Kent, because I could be wrong here. But I was under the impression that Stranger Things was supposed to be a serialized TV show where it was like each season would tell a new story with different characters.
Yes.
But then the first season was so successful,
And people like the actors so much.
they were like, let's keep going with these kids.
Yeah.
And I worry about that too, because like with Heroes, for example, the TV show Heroes, same thing where they were supposed to be, each season was supposed to be a new set of heroes. And then this first season did so well. They're like, let's keep going with these characters, even though we've exhausted them and they're not interesting anymore. And I'm worried it's going to happen with this. I mean, don't get me wrong, Ken. I know you love Barb, but
Apparently.
always comes back to Barb.
I know, apparently.
but it just these characters, you really like. People were upset when things happen to Barb. I'm speaking in general terms.
Yeah.
Which is weird because
I guess
that
you
was so many
basically
years
already
ago.
said it.
I said things happen.
Yeah.
But people were upset about it, and it was funny how people would get upset over a fictional character, or how they want to ship these other two characters together, and disappointed when they don't. So I just think it's so interesting how people have just embraced this, both the old and the young and the middle, like us.
Yeah.
So
Will this show, much like Lost did, will it inspire copycat shows? Or have we already seen those in a way?
I think definitely we're going to see more especially when it goes away. I think right now people don't want to do it because they don't want to be seen as copying a copier.
It's actually really funny because when It Chapter 1 came out, and even though, yes, it had Finn Wolfhard in it, so there's a direct reference, but people said, it feels like Stranger Things, but just rated R. And I'm like, it actually feels like It, which was a book way back when it was a movie in 1990.
Did you put on your hipster glasses for that?
Yeah. Well, yes, but I'm just saying.
But do you know what
Stranger Things is not the original.
Do you know what it is missing, though? Barb.
No, Barb is actually Pennywise.
She's missing from Stranger Things too.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Stranger Things it brings it all together. It introduces some fun, and if we have introduced these older things for you, like go check them out if you have any interest whatsoever.
Maybe I will. Who knows?
Yes,
we'll
Jake, I was talking to you.
We'll see. Yeah.
Yes, Jacob, please at least watch Goonies.
Seriously,
I've heard of that one.
Yeah. So there you go. Let us know what you think of Stranger Things, and if we missed any references that you noticed in there, references or influences. We're fine with both.
And before we go any further, we need to do our patron shout-outs.
Yes, we do.
Yes. So from the I Am the Listener tier, we'd like to thank Terry Finley, A More Civilized Podcast, Jordan Rexnick. Did I say that right?
Rexick.
I think there's an N in there.
Lemony Snicket.
Rexick. I got it. Stephen Ross, Adrian Gray. And from the Bacon Council, Nicole D. Hale, Spencer Myers, The Spirit of 38, Chris Anderson, Ryan Farron, and Mats Mudrow.
So good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
And don't forget, pick your winners for our Disney bracket for a chance to win
$15.
$50 gift certificate to the Disney store.
50.
But if you want to find me, you can find me at 76Joel on Twitter, presuming they ever look at my appeal. Or you can find me performing with Quick Wits. They perform every Saturday night at the Mid-Bell Performing Arts Center. For more details, go to qwcomedy.com or go to the Quick Wits Facebook page.
If you want to find me on Twitter and Instagram, it's at Kenny3DD. If you want to read my movie reviews, it's ShowtimeShowdown.com.
I'm on Twitter interacting occasionally at Jacob A. Rogers.
Agreeing with the listener?
Agreeing when they're right, yeah. I argue too. Just with you guys mostly.
Yeah.
Also, Baconsale on Twitter, of course, at Baconsale, and on Instagram. Make sure you find our merchandise store, tpublic.com/Baconsale. Also, as we just shouted out to the patrons and have mentioned there, go support us on Patreon if you can or you would like to help us. We would appreciate it. So, patreon.com/Baconsale.
So until next time, Barb, if you're out there, Kent's single.
Oh, we could give away anything. Movie tickets to go see Lion King. Suckers.
They will let you spend money anywhere.
Yeah, if anyone knows how to help you spend money, it's Disney.
I like how Kent's heritage gets him a little bit every time we get talking about
It's not even my money. Every time I turn around, do.
I love you, Zombie Ken.
If you haven't seen The Goonies, you probably haven't been around on the earth for more than maybe 10 years.
I saw fragments of it on TV.
You haven't seen Goonies?
And I've never gone back.
Oh my gosh.
I told you.
Okay,
Oh my gosh.
I think I
We're
might have
stopping the show
seen-
right now. We're going to watch it. Joel,
I'm having heart palpitations.
drink some water.
The Cheeto sandwich is not sitting well.
Who is One-Eyed Willie?
Oh, that sounds familiar. No idea.
Oh my gosh.
What is the Truffle Shuffle?
Don't know.
Oh my gosh.
This, guys, we're looking for a moderator for Baconsale.
I'm sweating. I'm sweating right now. Oh my gosh.
Help him or
You're
something.
killing Joel.
Joseph. My whole world is crashing down. Oh, wow. Wow.
With Jake.
I mean, wow. I can't even talk anymore.
Sean Astin's in this.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I don't know what to say. My reality has crashed.
Right.
I don't know what to say anymore.
You broke Joel.
But I have an idea of
Shame,
what it's
I know
about.
your name.
That's from the movie. I know his level of understanding of pop culture is here. But then when I dive in, sometimes I get scared and my ears pop.
How dare you, sir? What do you mean?
What's the
you
main
don't know
character's name,
Akira?
Jacob?
This show is falling apart. So this
If you paid enough attention to
Right.
pop culture, you would have known that kid, like me. Joel, am I right? Am I right, Joel?
Don't take a prideful drink of that soda right now, Jacob.
Can't ask me if I've seen this one.
No. Go.
Demogorgon, Xenomorph.
You should be banned.
It's all
You might be
real.
banned
It's
again.
all real.
Yeah,
What a
bro.
horrible night for a curse. I'm the fire starter. Twisted fire starter. Finn Wolfhard.
That's a tier 1 name. Kent, why aren't you wearing a shirt?
I never do.
Also,
didn't know the recording?
Yeah.
It always felt like you had a shirt on.
Nope. Jake, Cthulhu is a Lovecraft creation. They don't sell that at Costco.
They don't?
They don't.
Well, they do samples of Cthulhu, little bits of it.
That would be interesting.
No.
It's really chewy. Kent was a genius.